Ladies and gentlemen, people of all ages out there on this, small blue dot that is on the internet. I hope you guys are ready for another great week of some NBA action here at Hoops Laboratory. Got the normal cast and crew. How is everybody doing on this fine Thursday?
Not as good as last Thursday, but I'm all right. I can't base my happiness off the Lakers anymore, but I'll be okay.
I'd like to think we're old enough to where we're a little bit past that,
Yeah. Gotta be.
It's an 82-game slate. One loss isn't going to be the end of the world. Until it's game 82, and that keeps you out of the playoffs. But, we'll get there at the end of the season. Oh, that is not for today.
Yeah. A lot of injuries to talk about, huh?
Yeah. I think that's going to end up being the main kind of bulk of what we're talking about, in that this last week we have seen what feels like the equivalent of some of the NFL this season. It just seems like, and it's not, we're not just talking about, I don't want to say scrubs, but we're talking about some of the biggest names in the game are out indefinitely. We have not seen a timeline for a lot of these guys. And we've even seen some recent losses for these teams based on some of these injuries. I think the biggest one that comes to mind for that might be Jaylen Brown. And I'll pass this off, to you guys, but I really think he's one of the heart and soul players of that team. And the Celtics could use a little bit of heart and soul last night in that loss to Golden State.
Yeah, it surely seems like they could have used him last night. The Celtics are one of the teams maybe around the league who are more have the adequate depth to be able to deal with an injury like this. But a lot of these teams, it's like, gosh, especially if you're in the West, you're getting a big injury and you lose your star for, what is it going to be for Maxey? It's going to be a few weeks at least.
Yep.
And like, they're not in the West, but still, it's you lose your star like that, and you can get so far back behind the standings that it's something that snowballs, and you can't even. By the time you get him back playing with Embiid together, and it's like, can we even make the playoffs now, or can we even get out of the play-in? It's happened to the Lakers the last few years, and you miss an AD for a big chunk of games, or missing LeBron for a big chunk of games, and then, boop. There goes your chance at not making that play in. You want a 5 seed, you got to be healthy.
Yeah, well, we saw last night with the Lakers missing AD and Rui. They just don't have the depth to make up for it. And you're seeing that with a lot of these other teams. And yeah, it's strange to see in the NBA. You're so used to it with the NFL, but it's hitting the NBA early and hard. More so than I can remember in recent times.
I mean, there have always been, it seems like, a couple individual teams that get it. Even going into this year, last year, we saw it with the Grizzlies. They were one of the most injured teams in the league. It seems like we always see it in a way with the Sixers. That team is way too talented to be playing in play-in games or just scraping by the last couple of years. But Warriors are another big one. Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm used to seeing this later on in the season.
Yeah. We're not even like a month in. Like, teams have played less than 10 games and we're already like, okay, cool.
I would say it's like the Olympic year, but it's not like it's a lot of the Olympic guys that it's happening to. It's a lot of mainly non-Olympic people, and I don't understand this. What were they doing this whole offseason that was putting their bodies in such stress that they're coming back and getting so injured so quickly? I think that's what it's got to be. I don't believe in just a huge coincidences. I think there's something going on where the players are maybe pushing themselves a little bit too much in the offseason.
And I think what's unfortunate is that a lot of these injuries are from the main guys on the teams, like Banchero too.
Yeah.
And I think that hurts the Magic a lot. They were on a roll with Banchero. Now he's out for indefinitely, they're saying. So that's going to hurt them a lot. And then with the Maxey injury, yeah, like Justin said, how are they going to be able to develop chemistry with Embiid being out still and suspended, which we'll get into, and Paul George just coming back, but not looking like the Paul George he was in the past. And then Jaylen Brown, yeah, they have the depth. I think Peyton Pritchard, he's a very good player, but they're going to definitely need him for any type of run in the playoffs. So let's see what they can do, and if they can maintain this type of workload for Tatum, because we've seen players take on a heavier workload and get injured. So hopefully for Tatum, the workload isn't too heavy for him.
Yeah, just for posterity, we put together a pretty conclusive list of some of the injuries, not ones that we saw going into the season, but ones that have popped up really within this last week and a half. Jaylen Brown out with a hip. We don't have a timetable. We don't know exactly what the injury is. It's just a hip injury. One of those things where, to me, if it's something like that, even when he does come back, if he's not at 100%, he'll be pretty limited in his movement. Another one here with the Bulls, Lonzo Ball, who looked like he was actually picking it up and getting some really nice minutes. He was playing pretty well to start his year, out with a wrist injury, still in a splint, no timetable. On Banchero has a torn oblique, and he's going to be reevaluated here in 4 to 6 weeks. So give it a month and a half, 2 months, and they'll reevaluate, but it's a full tear. We don't know how long he's going to be gone. The big one now with the Grizzlies is Desmond Bane with a strained oblique, considered week to week. No idea. And I just saw this as well. Completely forgot about this with the Nuggets. It's not just Aaron Gordon with a calf strain who's out a couple weeks. Jamal Murray also out with a concussion. That we might need to dig into that a little bit, because that one is those two that can really kill the momentum from that team, who's off to a pretty solid start in a way, surprisingly, because that's another team where we said, if someone gets hurt, I don't know that they've got the depth right now to pick up that slack.
Yeah, we were talking about it last time. That was one of their issues, is their depth. Denver doesn't really have it. Jokic was talking about it. We don't have the depth and we don't have the consistency. And now you're losing even more of your depth. They're really regretting missing out on losing KCP right now. But it's like Gordon just provides so much as when his rebounding and his effort, and like every time he's on the court, every time I see him out there playing against the Lakers, it's like, God, every time this guy, he could change the game. But I don't know how long. We don't even know how long they're going to be without him. And the Nuggets are just starting to seem like they're going to be falling apart. It's going to be all up to Jokic and put everything on his back. And, well, when you're the MVP, that's what you got to do sometimes. But it's hard in today's NBA, like I was talking about earlier. And one of your stars go down, one of your good players go down, to be a consistently winning team, to stay above 500 during that stretch of not having Gordon and not having – well, Murray shouldn't be too long, but not having Gordon staying above 500. And it's going to be a big issue for them. I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, and without Murray, they're going to have to rely more on Russell Westbrook, not someone at this stage of his career that you can really rely on for big minutes. With the shooting and the turnover problems. So yeah, they're going to struggle with these injuries, definitely.
I have to go really small. I'm going to have to go the really small lineup, and Jokic, and then a really small lineup around him, and hope Michael Porter Jr. can make some shots. How's he been doing?
I'll check, but I don't know that he's been off to the best of start. No, he's averaging 17.8 a night right now. That's pretty solid. 7.3 boards. That's pretty decent. But I mean, I'm looking at it as, obviously you're going to need to lean a lot more on your guards for some of your scoring and defense for that matter without Aaron Gordon. But so how much of this now is going to be on a guy like Christian Braun, who's we're not sure kind of where he fits in yet as an NBA player.
Yeah. I think Peyton Watson's going to take over Gordon's minutes. He's a good defender. Just offensively, you're losing a lot especially in the rebound game, because Gordon, he's known for those offensive rebounds and crucial possessions. Russell Westbrook played well yesterday, I think, and I think he can carry the load until Murray's back, because Murray won't be out for too long, like Justin said. And then, just that bench, they don't have much. Julian Strother, he's a really good shooter. I think he should be given an opportunity now to get some more minutes. Playing with Braun and Porter Jr. and see what they can do with Jokic facilitating the ball, because you can really spread the floor with those three out there. So maybe Porter at the 4 could work too at some games.
Yeah, I think one of the big things with this team going forward, excuse me, kind of goes back to one of the points we made earlier with some of these guys and how these minutes are going to have to be spread back out. I mean, it's only been 8 games and Jokic is already playing 38 minutes a night. How, sustainable is that over the course of a whole season? If we're putting this guy through 38 minutes a night, I mean, I understand he's already averaging a triple-double, but the fact that you're relying on him so heavily over the course of the marathon that is the regular season, I don't think that's sustainable. It's almost asking like, well, we'll see when it breaks down, but when it does, we're cooked pretty much, because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think they have another option, because like their backup big, Zeke Naji, I think, is their backup. He's not used to playing more than 15 minutes, if that even. So I think
they've got DeAndre Jordan, but
yeah, and
it's today's DeAndre Jordan, not from a couple years ago. But
it's like they have a veteran coach, so you'd think he would know that you can't really run your guys into the ground like this. But at the same time, like older coaches are more used to running guys into the ground, because back in the day they would just play them. So it's kind of like, what's he gonna do? And the same thing over in Phoenix. It's like Budenholzer, you're playing Durant like we were talking about last time, way too many minutes, even though I thought it was Frank Vogel. But it was Budenholzer playing Durant way too many minutes over there. And they're both veteran coaches. Him and the same thing over there with Malone and Denver. It's what's going on with
Durant is even worse. He's at 39 minutes a game right now, which is stupid. I'm sorry, that's dumb.
I think when we said last time it was almost a 40. It was a 39.5 or 40, and so maybe.
Oh, there we go. Look, he's ticking it back a little bit.
Get your 30-second break.
It reminds me of Mike D'Antoni overusing Kobe and him playing 48 minutes down that like 10-game stretch.
Don't remind me of that.
Yeah.
It's great. It feels good seeing that it's not just Tom Thibodeau doing this to players. It's other guys as well. So it's warms my heart a little bit.
Well, on the plus side, I guess the newer coach like JJ Redick, he's been maintaining a lower minute threshold for LeBron. And with AD out, obviously he doesn't have much choice but to play LeBron more. But I think he's done a good job with the rotations. So maybe these newer coaches, they'll know how to manage minutes better.
Yeah, they usually don't want to come in. They don't want to step on toes. But it seemed like Redick's like, I don't care already. He saw D'Angelo Russell. He's seen what we've all seen for a couple years now. The effort's not there consistently defensively. And he got 6 minutes yesterday. So hopefully things like that will continue with the newer coaches just taking authority and not really kowtowing to these older veterans, or maybe even with the fans. They think the fans want to see out there, even though that's not what the fans want to see. They don't want to see Russell out there.
I think the problem with D'Lo is, like, even when he was drafted, that commitment was never there. He played better, I think, with us the first time around, and then found himself with Brooklyn, and then that was it. He just fell off the map after that, and just hasn't been able to get back up.
He was never going to be the same in LA after the whole Iggy Azalea, Nick Young, ratting him out. Like,
Swaggy P, baby.
That was a whole, like, how's the team even going to trust you anymore? And then And they bring him back, and it's like, God. Just,
I don't know. I've
well,
liked D'Lo during the regular season because he has been at times a great shooter, and which is what the Lakers need. You know, he gets on these hot stretches where he's just making every three and taking, you know, really difficult threes too. The problem is just, the playoffs, it goes away, and then the defense isn't there for him. So, hopefully Reddick can do something about that. And I think as far as coaching, you know, Reddick was a player, so he, you know, I think, you know, with minutes, he's a lot better with that because he knows, you know, from his own experience. So
I was going to bring that up too for some of these younger coaches or newer coaches coming into the league, especially for a guy like JJ Redick, who kind of already has a built-in level of respect from the players because he played in the league, played as long as he did, you know, and is now doing what he's doing. I feel like they've got a little bit of built-in kind of respect there. And from someone who was not a former player, it would take, you know, it seems like it would take a special type of coach to come in with that level of respect. Like, if we're looking at the college ranks, I think maybe a Hurley would be like one of the only few guys who would come in immediately and have that level of respect based on a resume. Maybe a Calipari, but that's really it beyond some of these guys who are former players.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen former players not turn out to be great coaches like Luke Walton. So it's not a given. It's just, you know, Reddick's knowledge for the game is a lot higher than most. So I think that's the difference.
That's fair. I mean, it could also be thinking about it position. You know, he played, you know, in a playmaking position where he had to handle the ball and kind of survey the court when he was playing. And speaking of coaches, this is one that I'm really curious about because I don't know, you know, I'm curious to hear what you guys think, how this will affect the team with Greg Popovich being absent from the Spurs indefinitely with some sort of health scare, some sort of health issue. Now with who's taking over? What's his name? Mitch Johnson, who, I'll be honest, never heard of him until now. I think, you know, that maybe I don't know ball, but you know, I just
when I read the tagline on ESPN, I said Johnson takes over coach of the Spurs, and I was like, I didn't know Avery Johnson was back with the Spurs. That's what I thought, and then I looked.
Not quite.
Miss Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him struggle already against the Rockets last night. So it's they're gonna take a hit with Pop not being there.
More importantly, the first game without him, right? The other day.
Last night it was Houston.
Oh, they did.
And
it was our second game without him.
Oh, that it might have been. So November 5 was this article. That might have been their first game, this last one against Houston, which, I mean, was a 27-point drubbing by the Rockets, which, you know, to that end, could that be just a level of quality difference between those teams? Maybe. I mean, we'll see how things turn out, but one of the main potential issues that I think this team is going to kind of face, or challenges that this team is going to face, and this is like a long-term thing, not necessarily just this season, is this is a team that is currently built and put together for development of some of these young players. And Popovich very clearly had a hand in selecting these young players.
Yeah, and they brought Chris Paul to kind of mentor some of these guys. Yeah, I think, you know, we didn't expect them to make the playoffs, but they're going to take a hit big time. It's just, I think more importantly, Pop gets healthy and back on the court.
100%.
Yeah, Pop seems like, you know, we already know he's been one of the all-time great coaches. He seems like a great guy personally. He speaks out about a lot of issues. just hope he's okay. I'm sure he's been big in the development of Wemby, just from all that knowledge he has. So you hope for Wemby and that team he can come back, but yeah, it's bigger than basketball at this point.
100%.
I don't think it affects them too much, like in the long term. I think they're going to be a developmental team this year, so they have the coaches on the staff who are already ready and able to develop young guys. Is just like a couple of us maybe thought that they would be competing for a play-in or maybe get the 6th seed, but I think that the winning situation of this year, if the longer Pop stays out, the more losses they're going to rack up. But I think the development will still be there, especially if they have the right coaches, and especially if Johnson is the guy they plan to have take over for Popovich one day anyways. He'll get us a little bit of a head start and see how he does.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly possible. I mean, I'm looking at, this article about Mitch Johnson, and I mean, he's been with the organization for a handful of years now. He's stepped in and coached for Popovich before. So, this isn't somebody who is completely new to the organization and the franchise over there. And we're going to talk about this. I think we should talk about this kind of combined and we already mentioned it earlier, Tyrese Maxey is going to be out a couple of weeks with a hamstring injury. And after, I think what we can only describe as an altercation with a local columnist, Joel Embiid is suspended 3 games. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to think about this, because they are, even though there was no telling whether he was going to play in these 3 games or not, they're counting these upcoming 3 games. So I think he's only got 2 games left on his suspension. I believe he'll be coming back, against the Knicks on the 12th. They're counting these games, which Embiid, we're not sure whether he was going to play them or not, as his suspension. Do you guys think the suspension was deserved, and how do you guys think about them giving it out?
I think it was definitely deserved. You can't go around hitting people or pushing people, but at the same time, that the reporter is crossing the line, and we all know as journalists that there's things you're supposed to do and things you're not supposed to do, and he's not like writing like an expose article or anything like that. He didn't really even try to talk to Embiid about this, and then he starts bringing up family members. So I think he definitely crossed the line, but you got to suspend Embiid for to stop people from doing things like that in the future, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to keep your cool when family members are brought up. Obviously, not the right thing to do to just push him or shove him or whatever he did. I think the suspension is warranted, but like you said, that was my first thought was, okay, he's already out. You're suspending him now, and then when he comes back, the suspension is just gone. When he comes back from injury, suspension is just gone. So I didn't understand that. It's not like he was going to play, as soon as that altercation happened. So I would have waited for him to come back first and then maybe suspend, but it is what it is now. But yeah, like Justin said, it's important to kind of make these suspensions, because then it's like a loop where other players will do the same if no repercussion happens to Embiid.
Yeah, I agree. And for context, this reporter wrote an article, talking about Embiid's injury history, and then brought up his dead brother and his son. Trying to somehow make that part of the story. And as as a writer myself, I don't, I would never do something like that. You don't bite the hand that feeds you, kind of thing. Like, I have these interviews on the red carpet. I've had people come to me and ask me to ask some outrageous question to a celebrity. I'm like, I'm not doing that. What? Why? Why am I going to have this person mad at me? So it wasn't right what the reporter did, but the action by Embiid was not right either. So he deserved a suspension. And like Levon said, it should have been they should have waited until they knew Embiid was healthy for the suspension. But
it's almost like that reporter was baiting him, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like we saw, well, we know it's a columnist. We know it's an actual local, like close to a beat writer, someone who's going to write these types of articles. But for one, it's one of those things where if that is something you want to bring up and talk about in terms of like, how or why Embiid is the way that he is, that's something for a profile piece. That's something for something that Embiid is involved in, not a piece, not something that's so out of context talking about, oh, he's got this injury history. By the way, we're just going to sprinkle that in on top and see what kind of reaction we can get. That's bad journalism. That's a, essentially just not being good at your job to that columnist. But at the same time, like you guys said, the reaction, getting into a physical altercation with this, seemingly, I would assume normal person, not a fellow NBA player, someone who's not 7 foot and, a professional athlete, is also completely the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah.
I was curious when I saw it, and my first thought was like, it's weird that they're not letting him, at least touch the court first before handing down something. But at the end of the day,
so he's been medically cleared by the doctors.
Oh, if that's the case, then
clear before they can do the suspension, before the suspension can start. So he's been medically cleared. So the next question is like, one, do you trust the Philadelphia doctors that they're telling the truth? They're saying, oh, maybe he'll just be ready in 3 days. 3 games. We'll just say he's ready now. Or was he not hurt ever at all, and he's just been sitting out for rest and lying?
But even then, wasn't that the question that they were asking through some investigation to start the season? Because I'm sorry, if you're starting off the season by missing, I'm going to say 6 games, because technically this last game that they played was via suspension. But if you're going to just sit out the first 6 games of a season due to rest, what were you doing after the Olympics?
Yeah.
You had 2 months.
Can't say that, and that's why he's not saying it's for rest, and he's saying it's for an injury. But then it just looks so sketchy when, I'm injured. Okay, you're suspended. I'm not injured anymore.
Yeah,
okay.
It's all right. That's
the timing of it all is a bit suspicious.
Yeah,
it is pretty sus.
Yeah.
But what isn't about that franchise? Hate them. That might be just me having to play them as often as my team does. But there are some other rumors swirling around the NBA right now. And they really are coming out of Milwaukee. And I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say. One, about this start for this team, and about these rumors. So for the record, the Milwaukee Bucks under Doc Rivers, who this is not, necessarily the time for me to get into it, because, I've got some takes about Doc Rivers. But they are 1-6 to start the season. And one of the rumors that we're hearing now is that potentially Giannis may want out of this situation, now that we're also seeing that it's not going so well for, with the Giannis and Dame experiment.
Yeah, if they get rid of Giannis, they got to get rid of Dame too. It's just when you watch them play, it just seems like they're like an old man YMCA team. It's just like the slowest team. They're so slow, and it's like, who are their quick twitch guys who are going to go get to the rim? Who are their quick twitch guys that are going to really be playing really good defense on these ball dominant guards or ball dominant forwards? And I don't see it. It's just Giannis. There's Lillard, and they're not the fastest players out there anyways. But beyond that, I don't know. I just see a very slow team, and maybe it's not the worst thing if they're going to trade Giannis. They might need to start getting younger and start looking at the future, because it's 1-6 to start off the year, and Giannis just missed a game with injury. And
yeah, I heard it's something like they don't have their next 7 first-round draft picks, something like that, and they're kind of locked into a salary cap situation as well.
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, so I guess the only way to get out of that and get younger would be to trade Giannis and Lillard. But
they get more for them the further before the trading deadline. Like if they trade them now, they'll get more than they will when they get to the deadline. But they're so good that they'll probably still get as much if they wait all the way up until the deadline. So it's not like they're in a big rush.
Yeah, and to your point there with like whether they should start or try and break it down now or wait until the deadline. Obviously, this is still a team, and these are two players with enough talent to potentially turn this around. Because sure, they're 5 games under 500. They're at the bottom right now of the Eastern Conference, are pretty damn close to it. But it's tough to look at these two guys and say, oh, they'll never turn it around. They just need to, bite the bullet and do it. But they're like you said, as you get closer to the deadline, other teams will pick up injuries throughout the year. Other teams, may find, oh, we're better than we expected, and we have the assets for this. We should capitalize on this now. They might be able to get, a ridiculous package of picks, the closer they wait to the deadline.
Yeah, I think the first problem with the Bucks was hiring Doc Rivers to start with. That was kind of the start of their downfall. And it's unfortunate for Lillard because it seemed like, him coming in now, he had a good chance to win a championship, and that just fell flat on his face. Chris Middleton being out doesn't help, obviously, but Middleton's also up there in age, so he's not going to really be able to turn things around like he used to. And I could definitely see Giannis being traded, and if Giannis is traded, like you guys said, Lillard's traded too. But then what happens with Middleton and Brook and some of these older guys who are not going to want to stick around there? I guess one positive would be it can't get much worse for the Bucks, and they're in the Eastern Conference. It's not as competitive as the West.
Yeah, I think that it's something like they're only like 3 games out of third place or something like that. So
yeah, it's still early. It's just they're struggling and they're like stuck. It's like a rock and a hard place right now for the Bucks. So I think they do trade. I think if Giannis gets fed up and requests a trade, they're going to trade him. And the question is, how invested is he in Milwaukee? Like if he has a home there, if he has a life there, compared to not, it'll be easier if he doesn't and just, gets traded out of there. But if he's invested in that community and, it'll be a little bit tougher for him to want to move.
Does OKC have anyone else's lottery picks this year? Like a lottery team's pick? I could imagine that would be very enticing, a lottery pick as part of a package, a lottery pick this year. Not a lot of teams in the lottery obviously aren't going to be trying to trade for Giannis, but if OKC has one of their picks, because I know they have a lot of people's picks coming up in the next few years. Same thing with Utah, but like I said, Utah wouldn't be like, we're not going to trade everything away for Giannis right now.
Let's see. It looks like they have a couple pick swaps, but a lot of them are top 10 protected.
Oh, okay.
For the 2025 season.
Smart teams. So, it's another thing when the Bucks start trying to trade, it's like any team that's has a chance at the lottery, even they're like, I don't want to really trade a first round pick this year, so you're gonna have to get picks in the future, which is what teams have been doing anyways.
Yeah.
Teams have been getting a lot of picks for the future. It's like all these 26, 27, 28 picks and pick swaps and be something like that again. Unless he okay, so he's got some young talent they could bring over there for him with the picks. That was the first team that I thought of when who was going to get him.
It also could be, looking at it, if there's a team that has been on the bubble for quite a while, and they really just want to, have someone to push them over that edge, that also could be in the cards.
Houston?
Yeah, maybe. One thing that I'm curious about, and Levon brought this up, is how invested Giannis is in not just the city to me, but also this team. I am wondering how involved has Giannis been in a lot of the decision making. For example, getting Doc Rivers in there to coach, who, it's not I'm not going to take a crazy amount of time on it, but right now he is truly one of my least favorite coaches in the association. He is still riding the coattails of a title from over 15 years ago. What has he done since then? Absolutely nothing. When they brought him in the first place, I thought it was a poor decision, and now we're seeing that because they took an aging coach with aging philosophy, put it on an old team that isn't fast enough to play much in today's NBA. Giannis still has that athleticism. He can do it. But if you don't have the pieces around him, which clearly they don't.
They do not have the speed. They don't have the athleticism.
If I remember, I saw some stat about it. I want to say they have one of the slowest paces of play right now in the league. They slow it down.
Of what 1.5 games that I've seen of them, it's so slow.
They don't play much on the fast break. They really try and eat up as much possession as they can. And while that can work for a lot of teams, ones that shoot well and ones that can capitalize on those opportunities, however limited they are, the Bucks are not that right now. They don't have the personnel to play that style, and they also don't have the defense to play that way. So it really does feel like in a way, a nightmare scenario for that, or that franchise.
I think the question is, where does Giannis land, but also where does Lillard land? Like, which team needs a point guard? And if the Pelicans hadn't gone and got DeJounte Murray, Lillard and McCollum reunion could have worked there. But now with Murray, it's going to be a lot tougher to make a move for Lillard. I don't think that happens. So where does he land? Do the Lakers try and get him? Because if they're going to move on from D'Lo, they're going to need a point guard. And if you want to get LeBron another championship, you're going to need a point guard like Dame, but he's aging. So I think that's where the problem will lie there.
Yeah,
he's already got that high contract. Maybe they could get him for the 2 picks. A couple of our young players. Can you do pick swaps too? No, I don't think we can because we would have to get 2 picks already. But got the 2 available picks. I think there's still some teams who would probably be able to beat out the Lakers for Dame Lillard. But if that happened, though, if Dame Lillard became available, that would just mean that somebody who would normally be available at the deadline that team with more assets would be able to get would probably fall into the Lakers' lap. So it would still work out well.
Yeah, the problem with the Lakers is Dame doesn't bring that defense from the point guard position that they also need. He does bring the shooting, and they could use some more shooting. But
just more to have the ball in his hands too. That's what I was saying earlier. Where's Derek Fisher when you need him? We need Derek Fisher so bad.
Yeah.
A team that comes to mind, I was talking to one of my buddies about this yesterday, actually, is where we haven't yet, but we're likely to see an uptick of minutes for a rookie. And if a guy, and I'm thinking of Minnesota, because Mike Conley is very clearly starting to show his age on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, he's still pretty solid and can still do a job at the end of games. But on the offensive end, he's been struggling big time. We're probably going to see an uptick in minutes from Rob Dillingham, but for a team that looks primed to make another run in the Western Conference with as much talent as they have, they could use another primary ball handler and someone who can shoot really well, because beyond DiVincenzo coming off the bench, Anthony Edwards has a decent shot, but that's really not his game necessarily. They don't have a ton of shooters otherwise. Naz Reid does have a nice shot, but again, that's not necessarily his game. Bringing in a guy like Damian Lillard to help that out, I think would be a pretty nice move.
And you're saying trade Dillingham to the Bucks?
Maybe not necessarily Dillingham, but they've got enough young pieces on that team that they can move. And by moving a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, they no longer have as much to worry about with the short-term cap limitations.
Yeah. They also have Leonard Miller, who hasn't played. They could replace, as power forward. Obviously, it's not a replacement for Giannis, but it's better than what. Well, Bobby's still there. assuming he doesn't get traded to. Like, they might just blow this team up if they start trading Giannis and Lillard. Because there's no incentive for these other guys to stay.
Yeah, not at all.
I see Miami going after one of them. I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
I could see
They got
that.
the last two couple picks have been pretty good. Hawkes, and they drafted Kello Ware, and they have picks in the future. And they're always a team.
Miami could.
Yeah.
I could see that. With my main thing with, I guess it's not as big of a deal in basketball, or at least it hasn't been to this point. Trading within the same conference, you don't always like to see those players, however many times again, especially if you do end up making the playoffs and have to potentially play each other. Always I know teams absolutely hate having to do that, but even then, those are certainly within the realm. I mean, if these are guys that, they're on big contracts, they're getting towards, either the end of their prime or the end of their career in some cases, you just want to get as much as you can, while you still can.
Yeah. For you viewers out there, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. And definitely subscribe and smash that like button.
Yeah, if they Bucks keep playing like this, I'm sure this won't be the last conversation we have on where those two guys are going. It could be the talk of the year, because
might be next week. You never know.
Gosh, we're getting to the in-season tournament, and Giannis and Dame aren't even playing for the Bucks anymore. Oh God.
Oh man.
That'd be insane.
But with that said, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate all of the support. We will see you guys right here back at the Hoops Laboratory sometime next week. Make sure you're keeping an eye on all of our Twitter feeds, and we'll keep you guys posted. Until then.
See ya.